Hello, and thanks for tuning in. As always, this is Reverend JR, and today I'm going to respond to the video I saw the Finntronaut responding to. He had some pretty good points, but I've got some different points, so let's just jump right in. This is a video from a channel called Thought Slime, and it's titled Capitalist Entitlement.
Now stop me if you've heard this one before. You dang leftoids, you're so entitled.
Well, I think you meant to say you act so entitled, but please, carry on.
You just want free stuff handed to you, and you don't even want to work for it.
Well, show's over. I've heard this one before. Thanks for tuning in and... Oh, wait, there's more. Haha, rhetoric. Seriously, though, there are many people on the left who do have that attitude, including people like Black Hitler, who think white people should, in fact, just pay him for having melanin.
So a couple months ago, an African in South Africa, aka Azania, said that he was not going to pay his white waitress. He said verbatim on the receipt slip, he said, "I will give you a tip when you give me my land back." And that got me thinking. I was like, you know what, Uhuru? He is right, he is lit, he is factual.
There's also people like Anita Sarkeesian, who think people should pay her just for being a woman.
Cool, so I'm sitting there and someone sends me this from Anita Sarkeesian. Yeah, that Anita Sarkeesian.
But let's carry on and try not to get caught up in the extremes.
Sound familiar? Of course it does.
Yes, I'm familiar with people making the argument that some people want nothing more than to have everything given to them while other people work for it. It seems like you think these people don't exist. Granted, they are in the minority, but they definitely exist, and many people on the left tend to sympathize with their plight. Not all, mind you.
If you're anywhere to the left of Paul Ryan, someone has said that to you. And if you're not, you've probably said it to someone else.
Alex, what is a straw man? What is a false dichotomy? Let's be sure we establish the proper in and out groups by virtual signaling to poison the well before we even get into the meat of the video, I guess.
Okay, nerds, you want to talk about entitlement? Let's talk about entitlement.
Sure, I guess. Wait. If we're the nerds and we disagree, does that mean he isn't a nerd and he's going to argue from an uneducated standpoint? Was that pause really necessary?
At the time of this recording, Jeff Boss Baby Bezos has a net worth of about 115 billion US dollars.
Good for him. Would you look at that? He's even worth more than Bill Gates. Warren Buffett is third, in case you didn't notice. The Zuck is fifth. Keep these people in mind. I think you'll find they relate to some points later on. Especially the Zuck, considering he's reasonably left-leaning. At least more so than Mark Ryan. Anyway. Also, keep in mind that Zuckerberg, Gates, Buffett, as well as over 100 other very rich people have signed the Giving Pledge to give half their worth away before they die, in the interest of humanity. Remember, they don't have to do this, just like Jeff Bezos here doesn't. See that $91 billion mark right there? Half of that is a lot of money, more than I'm worth in several hundred, perhaps even several thousand of my current lifetimes. Let's continue.
Enough money that if it were put to judicious use, it could end world hunger for about 3.5 years.
I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but that's a lot of money. Also, as the Finntronaut pointed out, we would have to have a massive change in world structure to actually solve the problem with money alone. Corrupt systems that keep starving people in those third world countries, or even in some well-off countries, don't change just because you throw more money at them.
1 in 9 people in the world are undernourished right now.
This is an argument from emotion that money will not solve that problem. It might help some of those people, but spending a tiny fraction of that amount to bring food independence to those people in their own communities goes much further than simply saying, throw someone else's money at it so I can feel good. If it were a simple problem, people like Bill Gates would have solved it by now. Or even you or me. It's not a simple computing problem, though. It's a dynamic problem.
And they could eat healthily for almost 4 years on the money that one man personally owns.
That's kinda correct. They could eat for maybe 4 years if the money wasn't subjugated by the people in power in those areas, and diverted to other uses. They could do much better if we could lift those countries out of poverty in the first place and deliver much-needed knowledge of modern agriculture to them, and they could eventually feed themselves much longer.
Think about how absurd that is.
You know, Slime, you didn't have to buy a computer to make videos on. You could have sent those few dollars to some starving person in Africa, but you didn't. Why not? Why won't you do what you seem to think others should do?
Really noodle it over.
Food pun.
Every hungry person in the world fed for years from the wealth hoarded by just one man.
You know, your computer, your cell phone, your recording equipment, and so on. Its value could also have fed at least a few people for a few years in some countries. Same with mine. Or the people watching us even, I suppose. Again, presuming it actually went to the purpose you intended it to, why are you here making YouTube videos when you could be sending part of your disposable income to those people instead?
So how did he get this money? Well, he helped to make a website.
Neat. IT is a highly sought-after skill, and it is hard to do it well. Why did you spend your money on a computer again? So you could make some stuff to put online? Guess you better criticize those who are better than you at it, I guess.
A very good website, mind you.
So, not only did this guy make a website, but he made it damn good, and he earned the right to do with the fruits of his labor what he chooses. Fascinating.
Amazon is useful. Lots of people use it. I use it.
Wait. You're telling me that you actively contribute to this man with whom you philanthropically disagree, and you are spending your money on things like Blu-ray discs, which I will remind you are also not accomplishing your end goal of feeding those people with your disposable income. If you won't send your 25 Canadian dollars to some starving people in South Africa, or even to your local food bank, instead of spending it on your own personal whims, why would you demand anything different from the people you give said money to?
But it's not like he does everything at Amazon.
I've made some editing mistakes in my day, but I follow Linus Tech Tips' rule of watching my videos first now.
He doesn't deliver the packages.
Of course not. That's how subcontracting works. Just like you're not driving to Walmart or the local video store to buy your videos. You're paying someone to deliver it to your house. He's just the proxy.
He doesn't do customer support.
Correct. He runs a glorified warehousing and distribution network which is gobstoppingly efficient. I presume you've never worked any kind of job that deals with warehousing or distribution, because that stuff is nowhere near as simple as you think it is. I say this as a person who has been involved in most of the retail chain. From production to finished goods to retail sales, Amazon is a modern marvel.
He doesn't develop the actual code of the website.
That's because he's not a programmer, I guess. He also started Amazon in a time when the majority of his investors did not even know what the internet was. He didn't get where he was by relying on other people to do his dirty work. He had to take the risk that might end him up homeless if he couldn't turn a profit and make those investors some money. He had to take the entire risk associated with this venture. Have you ever written to investors asking for millions of dollars that you are personally responsible for? Me neither.
He certainly doesn't make the products being sold on Amazon.
We get it. You don't understand how risk and reward work. Maybe I can point you to some remedial lessons on the subject in the future.
Point of fact, the people doing most of those things often make sub-poverty wages and work insanely long hours.
And not a single one of them is responsible for the welfare of the entire company. None of them can be held criminally liable if a warehouse collapses. Every single one of them could go out and try to start their own business or take higher levels of risk, and so on. No one is forced to work for Amazon, mind you. You could put your money in some other company. Would you rather capitalism not exist and them to have literally no choice because the government decides instead what reward they get for showing up to work? Remember how rationing worked during the wars? No, I don't reckon history is your strong suit. Capitalism isn't perfect, but communism seems to be far worse. Imagine if every job were like working for Amazon because no one had to compete for talent, and therefore the government doesn't have to incentivize better jobs because they can just force you to take whatever job they give you.
Somehow, No matter how profitable the company gets, their compensation doesn't seem to skyrocket like Jeff's does.
As previously mentioned, none of those entry-level employees who made the choice to work for Amazon decided to take on the risk of asking investors for $1 million. Would you take on such a risk for no more reward than the guy standing next to you on your line, or the guy in the next tow motor, or order picker, or so on?
Want to know the real reason Jeff makes the big bucks? He owns the infrastructure of Amazon, and for that, he has more money than anyone else on Earth.
No. He has more wealth, not necessarily more money. Wealth isn't calculated just in cash. Net worth means that he is worth that much, not that he can just go pull that money out of the bank or some other liquid account. He owns 16% of Amazon, and that's part of his overall wealth. He owns the New York Times, for example, and that's part of his net worth. Please learn how this works before you try to tear it apart.
You could argue that the leadership Jeff has put into Amazon as CEO was responsible for Amazon's aggressive, tumor-like growth.
You just told us you're literally helping that growth. No one forces you to shop at Amazon. No one forces you to pay for any of the media he offers. You choose to do it anyway, as though your actions don't have consequences, but his do.
And maybe he is the business genius behind such strokes of brilliance as, for example, Amazon not paying a red cent in federal tax in 2017.
This is a contentious point, and it's not incorrect. They do not collect taxes, or rather, did not for a long time, on things like sales tax because they are not responsible for them. They do, however, pay their actual federal taxes, as far as I can find out on the things they're legally required to do so. I'm not sure why anyone would argue that someone should pay more taxes than they're legally required to do so, but then again, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett have even argued that their own tax rate should be higher on regular occasion. The point remains, this is a much more complex issue than the simple presentation of it here would lead one to believe.
Like you and I are forced by law to do.
They are also doing exactly what the law states they must do.
I mean, that's only fair. It's not like Amazon's entire business model is built on technology developed through public funding. Oh wait, yes it was.
Do you hear that, guys? Thought Slime doesn't want any advertiser revenue since he's posting his videos on YouTube, and it's a site built on technology that wouldn't exist without Bell Labs and ARPA. By that logic, I shouldn't have to pay for anything that's based on anything in the public domain. Like when trucks use the road to deliver things to me. I mean, the entire trucking industry wouldn't exist, without modern roads, first developed by our government. Or the Roman government, or whatever. This can't be a serious argument, can it?
But okay, it still takes a good business brain to figure out that not paying taxes is profitable.
It's a good thing they are paying taxes, I guess. Is the argument here that we shouldn't let people who don't pay taxes use the internet? 90% of the world uses it and doesn't pay our government for it. Should we foreclose all of the internet just because it's all based on Unix and we developed it? Sorry, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. You guys derived your OSs from the even earlier stuff that wouldn't exist without the internet. Now we gotta take away everyone's computer who doesn't have a computer license. Do I really need to explain why this argument is incredibly dumb?
I wouldn't have thought of that. Maybe Jeff had the brain stroke to pressure workers into 80-hour work weeks.
Maybe people shouldn't take jobs they don't want to do. Maybe people should unionize, or at least exercise their rights under the government regarding fair labor practices. Maybe you should quit using Amazon until conditions improve, you dipshit. Well, I really hate this stuff I'm comparing with slave labor, but I'm still gonna use it because, wow, it's really cheap and convenient and cheap and stuff.
Hey, moron!
Maybe Jeff is the brains behind Amazon, in some broad, wishy-washy sense.
Fucking moron!
Presented without further comment.
But I doubt that he's put more elbow grease or ingenuity into managing the company than the army of middle managers he oversees.
Yeah, those people doing jobs that wouldn't exist if he hadn't taken 100% of the risk in the first place, the risk that none of those other people beneath him took, or anyone else at the time. I took a course on industrial supervision in college. The higher up you are, the more responsibility you have. And you have that responsibility regarding every single person below you, even the ones you never engage with. Also, as previously mentioned, he only owns like 16% now. Is that a majority share? Sources say yes. Even so, he is essentially also liable for 16% of the entire health of the company. Also, as stated earlier, those 78 million or so shares are part of his wealth. That's not cash money. Cash money doesn't have the responsibility of the future of an entire industry segment riding on its back. Jeff Bezos does, though. If the company falls through, his wealth will be redistributed to the people affected, at least in part, probably through a great deal of litigation.
I doubt his personal contribution is 1,000 times that of any of his contemporaries.
The top shareholder is Jeff, with nearly 79 million. The second most shares are held by Andrew R. Jassy. Want to take a guess how many shares he has? Go ahead, guess, think of a number, pause the video momentarily, put the number in a comment, then resume the video. Did you do it? Andrew only has around 86,000 shares. Jeff literally holds nearly 1,000 times more shares, and therefore 1,000 times more responsibility, arguably, than the person with the second highest number of shares in the entire company. Literally, he does in fact contribute roughly 3 orders of magnitude more to the company than anyone else in the company. Know how we can measure this? That's right, kids. Capitalism.
But let's assume, for the sake of argument, that it is.
I agree. It's far easier to assume than to check your sources. It's a good thing I did that for you.
Let's assume that Jeff is personally responsible for all of Amazon's growth.
Those are two different things, you disingenuous prick. His personal contribution was starting the company and taking the risk that might see him land in a gutter somewhere if he failed. Without his contribution, there would be no Amazon for you to buy things from, then complain about the workers who are tasked with getting those things to you and not making enough money because you won't pay extra for things like shipping or fair labor practices.
And that all of his employees would not have jobs somewhere else if Amazon didn't exist.
You are so close to being self-aware right now, it's almost satisfying. That's correct. They could leave Amazon, or strike, or whatever. Just remember, though, when you don't feel like paying shipping, or paying sales tax, that's also on you. You could have shopped some other place for that thing, but you didn't. No one forces you to shop Amazon in exactly the same way that no one forces people to be employed by Amazon. That's how markets work. Buy your stuff from someone else.
Even in one of the companies that Amazon put out of business.
It's a shame you buy things from Amazon instead of one of those other companies, I guess. Wonder why we do that. Probably economics or something, I guess. Anyway, I'm only about 3.5 minutes into this video, so this is going to be another multi-part series, it looks like. If you enjoyed this, or if you didn't, please click the appropriate thumb. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of various economic theories or whatever. Share this video. Pretend it's the means of production and you want everyone to have it. Apologize for making my patron at the wrong level last video. Patreon changed the way it delivers info to me, and I didn't double check carefully enough. My mistake. If you want to know how to become a sponsor of my channel, click that Patreon link like so many others in the nation I'm not Philly D yet. And as always, this has been Reverend JR, signing off.